Well, Liam, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Liam Cain, Labor's Local 1271 out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm also in the Industrial Workers of the World, in the Environmental Unionism Caucus, and I'm here right now as a representative for Labor for Standing Rock.
Well, Liam, I'm Patrick Burns. I'm a member of the Freedom Socialist Party. I'm also a member of Organized Workers for Labor Solidarity, ALS. I'm also a retired Union Carpenter from Carpenter's Local 30, located in Renton, Washington.
Right on.
So Liam, you know, what is Labor for Standing Rock? Tell us about that.
Labor for Standing Rock is a relatively new group. Obviously, I'd say it's about a month or so old. It's rank and file union members from a variety of unions. I got involved through the IWW. There's some IWW people that were kind of involved in germinating this idea that introduced me to the group. There's an organized nurse out of the Denver area, Cliff Wilming, that's been involved for a while. There's union lawyers out of New York City. There's more union carpenters. There's it really kind of crosses. It's rank and file people from a plethora of different unions. And for me personally, what really galvanized me and got me involved with the group was seeing the building and trade statement, calling on the governor of North Dakota to bring in the National Guard to suppress the water protectors because they were interfering with their employer. And to me, like, for a variety of reasons, as organized labor, that the hypocrisy and just how shameful that was really resonated with me and drove me to get involved with the group.
That's overwhelming. Did Trumka sign that letter, or it wasn't Trumka? Who's head of the building trades? Do you know?
I would have to look. I believe it's
all right.
Might Sean Karen governor.
I don't know.
I'd have to look right now who's the head of the Building Trades Council. Trumka signed a different letter that was kind of mealy-mouthed, kind of workers need jobs, so screw the protectors basically. But he didn't sign the particular one that really galvanized me. He signed another pretty weak one that showed no solidarity for the people that were getting screwed over by big business.
Trying to appeal to too many people. Looked like a good guy, but
far too
had no backbone.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I just want to say it's terribly shameful that the building trades would even consider signing a letter like that. How do you stab people who've been oppressed for 500 years, resisting for 500 years in the back like that, and force them once again to suffer the consequences of some ugly capitalist enterprise? Absolutely.
I mean, to me, it's taken whatever good there is in organized labor, in the labor movement, and it's just spitting on it, throwing it out, and just really embracing the role as the true party or partner of capitalism, basically. And negotiating with the bosses for slightly better deals, negotiating our demise, and really not caring at all about the working class or caring about people that are being exploited by capitalism.
So what does being here mean to you?
It means quite a few things. I would say first and foremost for me, once again, the thing that brought me here personally, that got me involved with Labor for Standing Rock, that got me to actually come here physically multiple times, was...
Well, you've been here more than once.
Yes, I was here. Labor for Standing Rock had an initial contingent of a variety of rank and file union members that were here, I'd say about 4 weeks ago, give or take. And we were here and made some contacts and just kind of chipped in and tried to get a better feel for what was going on here. And it was just, so back to your original question, I guess for me, being in the laborers union, having worked multiple heavy construction projects, having worked on multiple oil and gas pipelines, and that's something that my views have changed on, in the last few years. But even aside from that, to me, like the situation with Standing Rock and the water protectors, it just reeks so much of racism and just like the historical disregard for Indigenous people and their rights and the autonomy that they clearly deserve and do not get at all from this government, from any kind of businesses that are operating in this country. And so for me, that's what galvanized me and brought me here. And it was very important for me that even though my union, well, one of my unions is on the other side of that police line, to be here and to show that there's rank and file members of that union that do not agree. There was a lady, Chaos Riddle, who's also a LIUNA member who was here with the initial Labor for Standing Rock delegation, and I believe she's with Local 236, city workers out of Madison, Wisconsin, and they unanimously signed a declaration of solidarity with the water protectors, and she was here to present that and represent her local here at the time too.
Oh,
and that was really powerful, yeah, to see other laborers bucking that, the very shameful line that our union head is taking on us.
Well, I know in my union at Carpenter's Local 30, that one of our delegate members brought a motion for our executive board to recommend donations in support for Standing Rock, and I'm really proud of that. I don't know, I wasn't able to carry that message because it still hadn't gone in front of the membership. But do you think there's a real discord between union leadership and union membership?
In general?
In general.
Absolutely, in general. I think, yeah, I don't think that means that it's as clear as the leadership, well, the leadership is pretty much totally sold out, but as clear as all of the rank and file would just support the water protectors. I don't think it's quite that simple. I think, in my experience, primarily working on pipelines, primarily working, through a trade union, I think, I primarily worked with a lot of straight white dudes, and they really felt, in general, very threatened. I think just in general in this nation, as far as like they had a position of relative comfort and power relative to people who were more oppressed, and back to that disconnect between them and the leadership, that's really being threatened because the leadership doesn't care about them, whether they're in a slightly better position than oppressed people or not. The leadership doesn't care about them, and like to me, that's led to a really unique and very disturbing dynamic where you have things like pipeliners for Trump, like these, and that's. I'm not really building pipelines these days. I'm mainly fighting wildfires, so this is my knowledge of this stuff is more peripheral from people that I still know that are building pipelines on a regular basis. But there seems to be a lot of support in the building and trade unions, definitely in the ones that are building pipelines there was for Donald Trump. And so to me, seeing like union people supporting somebody like that, for so many reasons, that's just wrong and disconcerting, and I think that's a definite disconnect.
They just didn't have much of a choice this time around. I mean, you choose between good cop and bad cop, and maybe Donald Trump is the good cop in this issue. I'm joking.
I hear you. I mean, and that's, yeah, you give them a horrible choice, and they choose a horrible choice. It's not really that shocking, It's like maybe we should be presenting people with options that are actually meaningful and something you can actually hope in.
Well, maybe labor ought to begin to cut its ties and figure out how to develop a labor party movement, something that is truly committed to representing working people.
I would like that. I mean, I think labor should have way more in common with the working class, period, rather than just being a lapdog of the Democratic Party, which it's been for as long as I've ever been involved in it.
Yeah. What I've noticed is that, my union, there's a lot of talk about how politicians support our issues to carpenters. What I'm figuring is happening is that what we're doing is carrying the political water for developers, getting big projects moving and going, and by doing that we get a few crumbs.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. I mean, that's the situation I saw personally when I worked out of the laborers hall as my primary means of income. you know, you look like our jobs, you know, in Wyoming as a laborer, as a union laborer, our jobs are fossil fuel based. Like, they're dependent on this gross over-reliance on fossil fuels that this nation has, which is unsustainable, but and there's a whole host of, you know, which is not a good thing, period. But the dynamic is, the reality is, your good paying laborers union job, the only way you go to work instead of sitting home on the, you know, on the out of work list is by working in fossil fuel industry. And so to me, that really drives home the importance of articulating the need for a just transition from this gross over-reliance on fossil fuels we have as a nation to a more sustainable way of generating energy that involves, you know, good-paying union jobs. You know, people have rights, people have fair wages, but they don't have to only get those rights and those wages by participating in this gross over-reliance on fossil fuels. You know, we can do that in solar, in wind, in...
Is there organizing around that?
I think there's organizing that's just kind of starting to get off the ground in that. There's folks, some of the people that were an inspiration to me were Iron and Earth is an organization out of Alberta, where it's taken trade union people that are really kind of pushing the narrative that while they're working in the tar sands, and that's what they're doing to pay their bills, they recognize this is unsustainable, and they really want to either find a way to transition their skills into more sustainable ways of generating energy, or reskill their members and put them to work doing something that's not so harmful to the environment and to the local communities, but still actually make a living wage, or at least a living wage, you know, and have good benefits.
Is it? I thought there was some justice, union environmental justice effort.
There's a few. There's Trade Unions for Energy Democracy, who I'm not a part of. I've heard a little bit about, and I'm trying to get in more contact with. The Industrial Workers of the World have a Environmental Unionism Caucus, which is how I got tied into Labor for Standing Rock initially. You know, so there's, and I see, I have a friend who's a laborer in Portland, Oregon, and he's been involved in, I believe it was Rise Up, like with the kayaktivist blockades of those cutters there in Portland a little while ago. And, you know, so you see union members tying into these different groups, and I think right now what we're trying to do, what I really hope and envision going forward, is kind of tying some of these threads together and building more of a united front where we can actually, instead of just a few of us union members or class conscious workers or whatever, you know, that we can actually kind of unite and kind of, you know, share our stories, share our struggles, share what's working, like we did about general labor issues, you know, about the way we're interfacing with the environmental movement and with all of our desire to live on a planet that's not been raped and pillaged and is about to not sustain life anymore because of our greed. You know?
Yeah, incredible. I have one last question for you, and that is, do you think the momentum of what's happening here at Standing Rock is going to last? Yes or no? And what do you think what do you think comes next? You know, or what would you like to see come next? Two questions, actually.
All right. I would say yes. I think this momentum will continue. Personally, like to me, it's been a really beautiful thing to be here. One, to be here as somebody that has worked in heavy industry, that holds a card that's represented on the other side of that police line. The way I've been received and treated, you know, by the Sioux, by the water protectors in general here has been very humbling, and yeah, it's resonated very deeply with me personally. And in general, there's just such a very grounded, very deep spirit of resistance and determination here that I'm blown away and very impressed, and just trying to do whatever I can, whether that's skill set or fundraising or awareness raising when I'm not here, to try to just continue generating support for these folks in their fight. And as far as going forward, what I would like to see, I mean, to me, when I first got involved in Labor for Standing Rock, my contacts, like with the industrial workers of the world, specifically with their environmental unionism caucus, but in general, I'm from Humboldt County in Northern California, in the Redwoods originally, and there's a deep divide there between these environmentalists and lumber workers really loggers really parodying the lines of the people they sell their labor to. And when you actually take a few steps back and get away from that, you can really recognize they have common enemies, and it's just such a waste of effort, passion, and so much fighting spirit to be at loggerheads with each other all the time when we share so many common enemies. And so for me, one thing I'm really passionate about, and I've been trying to work with through the IWW, has been building a bridge between labor, rank and file folks, and environmentalists, whoever. And here, I think here's pretty much a blueprint for them. I think a lot of these just beat me to it. What I envisioned, what I hoped for wasn't even, I couldn't wrap my mind around this, honestly. And so this, and then
do you think this is an historic moment?
Absolutely.
An epic moment in history?
Absolutely. I mean, when you look, whether it's, in my grasp of history is not the best, but when you look back, and I believe this is the largest gathering of indigenous people, a variety of indigenous people of various tribes in North America, I believe, in like over 100 years easily. I think that in and of itself is pretty damn impressive. And then when you look at the way that's bringing all these other folks, bringing them into this struggle as well, really recognizing the way that, Native rights have always been a joke in this nation. Like they've been paid lip service to, and then they've been trampled on, and they've been disregarded.
It's 2016. Incomprehensible.
It is, and it's just so sad. I mean, it's like, I guess you can read it in a history book, and it's abstract, and it's something that was definitely wrong then. And I think just looking at it now, I think this particular struggle, perhaps, I know for me, really just brings home how much things really haven't changed. Like, there's still a gross disregard from the powerful people in this nation for indigenous people and their rights, and if there's an opportunity to rape and pillage their lands versus actually respect their sovereignty, I think this nation always falls on the side of raping and pillaging their lands, and that's wrong. And I think it's beautiful here to see this gathering of indigenous people resisting that, and then all the different people that's bringing in, showing solidarity with that, the people that are doing these actions at banks around the nations, all those different things, and really bringing that together. This has really broadened my horizons as far as recognizing here, elsewhere in North America, South America, where indigenous people have really been the ones who took a lead rather than wringing their hands and talking about how global warming is actually going to kill us all, and then having strategy sessions. Indigenous people have took the lead and actually started doing something about that. And for me, coming into this, my goal was to get labor, the working class, and the environmental people on the same page. And I think what I really learned here personally, and I would say this would probably speak for the group as well, might not have been such a revelation to others, but is that the indigenous people are way ahead of us in that, and it would do us well to just observe and learn from them and take those lessons home to us, to our struggles in our communities. And I really think there's a very powerful, it's just a very powerful force. I mean, you look like in Bolivia, you had campesinos and indigenous people and trade unionists united together, and they destabilized a very corrupt, oppressive regime. You know, it's like when you can actually bring the indigenous people and their cultures and just the strength and resilience that's in there, and tie that into folks with their environmental conscience, with their things like that, folks with their, you know, their trade union, you know, worker struggle concepts, and tie those things together and have a united front against the capitalists that are raping.
Boy, you hit a term that's dear to my heart. United front. Exactly. You know, we may have our own philosophical differences in different places, but in our hearts, we're one.
Absolutely.
You know, there's one last thing I want to add to this conversation is that I think what's compelling here is that, you know, you look back at Pine Ridge in the 70s where there was the battle with, you know, against the FBI and the military, whoever showed up, and there was infighting in the, you know, with the Indians in that location. I'm forgetting the name of the tribe, but it was brutal. It was horrible. You know, it was native member against native member, and I think something's happening here where this time and place in history, what must be making most sense to tribal leaders is that they have a weapon that, you know, that they're taking from the past of nonviolence. But I think what's really important to point out, it's assertive nonviolence. They're not backing away. They're not just saying, oh, you know, we're not going to hurt anybody. But they're saying we're going to stand in front of violence, extreme violence, and we're going to hold our ground and fight for what's ours, or what belongs to them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And tagging into that really quick.
Please do.
Just when we first got here, like a month ago, it was right after, you know, the police and whoever else, the military contractors, the security people for DAPL had raided the frontline camp on the right-of-way and bulldozed it and just had done mass arrests. And so when I got here, it was, I would say, a bit of a lull even, but it was still very disconcerting to me. And this is quite probably due to being a straight white dude in the U.S. is why this is still something I'm wrapping my mind around. I have friends that are Native American that this is by no means a shocker. So it was maybe not shocking me, but it was eye-opening just to roll over the hill there. And
this one?
Yeah, and there's the bridge. There's a blockade on the bridge. There's burned out vehicles on the bridge. There was a police sign there, and there's a bunch of Humvees flanking armored personnel carriers. I believe Bearcats is what the new generation.
Christ, that's a war. I mean.
Yeah, and it was for a friggin' prayer circle.
You know, maybe we ought to start using nuclear bombs and to make sure we get rid of the flies in the living room.
I think that use of force is kind of on par with what's going on here.
Liam, thank you so much. This
Absolutely.
has been a very pleasant conversation.
Likewise.
And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.